This video is sponsored by Amino. Amino is the perfect app if you're looking for a place with different communities for different people to unite around their passions, fandoms, and favorite interests. Now, my favorite community on Amino is actually the Pokemon one, as it features all things Pokemon. And I seriously mean it, this app has everything. Like, if you want Pokemon stuff, then this is the perfect place. You've got tons of information about the latest news and what's happening with Pokemon. You can also vote on polls and share your opinions about so many different subjects when it comes to Pokemon, or also just check out a ton of awesome fan art of different Pokemon characters, and so much more. So for integration with specifically Amino, I will be posting a poll on Amino for which country should be the next region in 2019. So if you do want to check out Amino, I will be leaving a download link to it in the comment section and also the description down below. And if you do download Amino, then make sure to also add me under Ruffled Rowlet. I will be accepting everybody on Amino. All the friend requests that come through, I will be accepting them, and I will also be answering any questions you may have for me on Amino. So I hope to see you guys there, and let's get into this video. So, with the confirmation of a new generation coming to Nintendo Switch in 2019 for Pokemon, a lot of questions have arisen, and one of these questions that I want to ask today is, what will Game Freak base Generation 8's region on? As some of you may know, Pokemon regions tend to be based on real-world places. The first 4 regions, Kanto, Johto, Hoenn, and Sinnoh, were all based on different parts of Japan. And then you have Unova being based on New York, and Kalos being based on France, and finally Alola being based on Hawaii. So now I ask the question, what will Generation 8 be based on? So, we will take a look at 10 countries that could possibly be the areas that the next region coming in 2019 is going to be based on. So let's get started with number 10. So coming in at the number 10 spot, we have ourselves China. Now, China is a region of the world that has been kind of rumored to possibly be the place for the next generation. Like, there's been a lot of rumors, kind of going over it and saying, why potentially it could happen. So I thought it would be a good one to actually, kind of mention here. And honestly, I would totally be up for it. China has a geography and culture that definitely would beautifully translate over to a Pokemon region. China is also one of the world's oldest cultures and oldest countries, so to say. And there's a lot of, things that you can take in form of their history, and also those things can translate into cool journeys, stories, and even quests in the game to actually do, as well as a lot of unique and new Pokemon could be created based on this history and culture. And lest we not forget the fact that China also has the largest industrial production in the world. This could translate into a pretty cool story, and it could have an effect on the actual gameplay. They create more things than any other country, and also have a huge tech industry booming in the country. So with a country and a nation with so many different stories and tales, as well as current industrial center points, technology advancing industries, there are so many opportunities for a region to be made out of China. There is history, there's culture, and we even forgot about mentioning the geography. The country is a mixture of a lot of different, things, such as beautiful mountain ranges, old historical buildings. It's just a mixture of really awesome things about China that you can use for a Pokemon region. Now, will this happen anytime soon? We don't know, but I think it could be cool if it ends up being in Generation 8. If it ends up being based on China, it would be pretty awesome. Either way, let's get to the next one. Now, coming at the number 9 spot is going to be Canada. Now, Canada is kind of cool, to be honest. No, but for real though, like, Canada is really amazing. Perhaps not a country with much history, like, compared to China, but it definitely makes up for that in its nature and people. Canada has some of the best natural environments in the world, and personally, I'd love a region that takes on a more natural and foresty feeling to it, with less beaches and islands, and more focus on just amazing lakes, mountain ranges, as well as great, just generally great forests, and just like, a bunch of forests, so to say. And I think this is where, Canada could shine. Overall, Canada has landscapes and a climate that can fit almost every person out in the world, unless, you're looking for a tropical setting that, that you won't get there. But, generally it's an environment that fits most people, and everybody can kind of find a, kind of climate there, or an environment, that fits them. And as someone who kind of, is kind of tired of all the tropical settings and, the latest Pokemon entries, it'd be really nice to get a new region now that goes away from that, just takes a different turn. And let's not forget that Canada also has some interesting animals that could definitely translate into some awesome new Pokemon, as well as an overall great and friendly, you know, bunch of people. Like, the people there are amazing, and with the French influence in the country, you could also, you know, make some connections to Kalos. So yeah, generally speaking, great place for a region in my opinion, and I would love to see, you know, an actual region based on Canada, and who knows, maybe it's going to happen in Generation 8. We'll just have to wait and see. Let's get to the next one. So number 8, I actually have 5 countries, and I'm combining them into one as the Nordic countries because it's kind of hard to pick one of them, and I think they work together better than like on their own. So I'm basically going to list down 5 countries now. It's going to be Sweden, Norway, Finland, Denmark, and Iceland. And you may ask why. Well, if I was to do them all separately, they would take up too much space on this list, so I'm just putting them, you know, into a single kind of, you know, bag together, because I think, in all honesty, these countries share a lot of similarities in, you know, essentially geography and that sort of stuff. So I think it's kind of a good, you know, balance to mix those together. So here's the thing, right? Think about it. If you kind of combine all these countries, you have like the perfect region. You have the warm islands of Denmark, the cold north in Sweden, Norway, and Finland, and then the volcanic island of Iceland. And combining all these things, you can just kind of like mix it together and make a great region. And also, let's not forget the history that also exists in these countries, with Sweden being a country of a long heritage and several old and historic buildings, you know, and big cities just brimming with history. The same goes for Norway and Denmark as well, and well, to Finland too. So a lot of these countries have a lot of like really deep, you know, old history, you know, from old wars and that sort of stuff, and like how these countries were built up and what they became, you know, and the different people in the countries, you know, like nobody who lives like really far up north is even close to similar as somebody who lives in the, you know, far south of Sweden, you know, or somebody who lives in the middle, and, you know, who lives on the east and the west. Everybody's so different, and everybody has like, you know, their own culture and different buildings and architecture. It's just like a really cool place. And just, I feel like the Nordic countries just combined work really well in unison for, you know, just creating a full-on region. And that's why I think that all these countries are just brimming with the history. And if Game Freak were able to take some time to look over, you know, all of it, they could create one of the best regions ever. They can use the history of the Vikings reigning over the north of Europe, and the history from like the 1600s of the waging war that took place in the region. Overall, the northern Europe has a rich history and a geography that is just perfect, with like mountain ranges up in like, you know, Norway and stuff. It's just so much here to actually explore, and I think it would just translate fantastically into an actual full-on Pokemon region. Now let's get to the next one. So coming up next is going to be Mexico. So I think this is a given. Mexico is just brimming with interesting culture, and I would say it has a lot to offer in terms of like being a fitting place for a region. The country has some of the most, you know, awesome assortments of food, which, you know, we've seen in Pokemon. Food is kind of important nowadays, and it's a great place with a massive heritage, and like it's, you know, it's an old heritage, you know, reigning from like, you know, the colonial days and that sort of stuff. Like basically, it's a place that brims with a lot of old culture, and, you know, you just kind of take that together and just mix it together and make a great region. Now, the country has so many, you know, cultural aspects that have, you know, even been translated into other Pokemon, you know, Nintendo products rather, and such as like Nintendo's Super Mario Odyssey, that actually showcases some of like those cultural aspects of Mexico, such as like Santa Muerte. And let's not forget that the country also has a geography that could definitely be interesting to explore, with a mixture of like everything from like, you know, great, you know, culturally significant cities to great beaches, and of course like remnants of heritage from like previous people and inhabitants, and, you know, the people who used to live on this land, you know, prior to the Spanish coming in and whatnot. So like basically there's like a lot here that can be done. A lot of like, you know, using the real history of Mexico and the real like, you know, cultural aspects of the people there that live, you know, in Mexico now. All the Mexicans take their, you know, heritage and also what used to be there in the past and mix that together to make a really like interesting region. I feel like I think it could work. You know, they've taken aspects from Mexico and from different cultures into other Nintendo products. So I wouldn't mind seeing Game Freak, you know, taking an aspect of, you know, Mexico and just making a whole region out of it. I think it would be pretty cool. But yeah, I think it would be a really cool place to actually make a region out of. Let me know your thoughts on that one, guys, and let's go to the next one. So coming in next on the number 6 spot is going to be Egypt. Now, this is an area of the world that I think would be a kind of hard one to pull off for a full region, but that I think still is kind of possible. Now, Egypt is, as far as I remember, the oldest country and culture in existence. So in terms of history, Egypt essentially has all of it, and I think Game Freak can definitely make something interesting out of that and create a cool story around it. And as for the geography of Egypt, there may be some issues when it comes to like the actual, lack of colder areas such as like snowy mountains and the lack of like major forests, which could make it a hard place to make a full region out of, and base it off of the whole country. I think it would be hard, but if you make compromises and add areas that are still cold and mountains and such, you can still, make it work. And then of course having like beaches around and that sort of stuff, I think it would work. And desert would probably be the main thing about it. But if you utilize what is there, the culture, the beautiful cities and the amazing beaches and the heritage that Egypt has, you could definitely create something great out of it. Like I can just imagine all they could possibly do, just the history behind like the pyramids, or perhaps the history behind all the sort of buildings and monuments that exist in this country, as well as the people there and how the people have evolved over time. It's definitely a region that is worth taking a look at, because it's definitely something that could be turned into a great Pokemon region with tons of mysteries to uncover and just like a place that just brims with potential. So let me know your thoughts on that one, guys. Let's go to the next one. So coming in number 5 is going to be Spain and Portugal. Now I want to include these two countries together since they are close in terms of like proximity. Though Portugal and Spain are close, they share like overall the same environment, so to say, because they're so close in on the globe, so to say, and in the world, that they also do kind of share very similar architecture, and just geography in general is kind of very similar, which makes both countries quite lovely. Actually, the countries both have like lovely beaches, interesting places, lovely cities and villages that offer a perfect place for a Pokemon region. I think Spain is the most likely one to happen, to actually become a region, considering that Masuda has been visiting Spain several times, and he said several times that he loves it. He just loves Spain, and it's a part of the world that he just adores. So I think that definitely this is the most likely one to happen. Like just Spain in itself, maybe not Portugal included, but I think Spain in itself could definitely become the next region for Generation 8. It just feels like it would be the most logical one to happen. And I don't know, guys, let me know your thoughts on that one. But I think Spain and Portugal have just like beautiful architecture. Like that's what when I think of Spain and Portugal, like I just think of beautiful architecture, like really old like cathedrals and stuff, like just beautiful buildings. So I think they could definitely pull something great off here if they actually put some time into it. And if this is what Generation 8 like ends up being based on, I would not be disappointed. Now you may say, oh, it's a tropical area, whatever. No, like Spain has mountain ranges as well. Like same thing goes for like Portugal. There are some mountains there, not like a lot, but there are still mountains. Like Spain has mountains, Portugal I think some, and they do of course have beaches, but they also have like just great countryside and just an overall great atmosphere about them, and just beautiful countries rather. So yeah, let's go to the next one, shall we? So coming up next, we're going to the place down under, and highly advocate towards having a Pokemon region based on this part of the world. We're talking about Australia, of course. Australia may be slightly younger as a nation, I would say, compared to like some of the other ones we've mentioned. Like, some of these countries we talked about are slightly older in, age and for as long, how long they've existed as individual countries, but that's besides the point. I think Australia is one of the coolest places to probably make a region out of. Like, as a region and, as the oceanic and, all that continent and stuff, it's not exactly, super inhabited by a lot of people. Like, there are parts of Australia that are inhabited, by large quantities of people, but there is, plethoras of parts of the country that are just like uninhabited. But that is pretty cool actually, because it ends up giving us a plethora of amazing animals and enough critters to actually create an infinite amount of poison type and bug type Pokemon. Like there is so much potential in just that aspect of the region. Like I wouldn't mind myself having a kangaroo Pokemon, just saying. I think it would be pretty cool. So hey, I think that Australia would be fantastic. Now, the last time I mentioned and did a video like this, I actually included Australia as well, and I talked about how, like, as a country, it probably has a lot to offer in terms of, like, just the general environment there. I mean, of course, it is really warm, and like that's what I thought about most. I said it's just too much of a warm region. It kind of reminded me of like much of Egypt, like not bunch of deserts, but like just sand all over the place, but like very similar in that sense. That's what I thought about it, and I was like, but there's no way you can take Australia and make a full region out of it, because the same way with Egypt, you don't have like mountains with snow and stuff, but apparently there are mountains. I'm not sure if there are many, but there apparently are mountains in Australia that actually at the top of them actually do have snow and stuff. So yeah, you can use that as an excuse to make like actual mountains in an Australian Pokemon region and just be like, hey, there's snow here, but this is based on Australia. You don't know. But I think it would be pretty cool actually. And since it's like, the whole of Australia is just like a, on its own kind of like giant island, so to say, as a continent, like it's kind of like, cut off from everything else, in its own little like bottom corner. I think it'd be lovely to just have a full region, just with that sheer size. Like, it would be just amazing. And the amount of new Pokemon you could actually include would be awesome. So I think Australia would be great. Also, the people there are freaking fantastic. Know so many people from there. They are so freaking awesome. So let's go to the next one, shall we? Now, coming up next is going to be, okay, this one's going to be a little bit weird. So, Brazil, Chile, and Argentina. Now, I'm including a lot of like different South American countries in this one because they're all just amazing, and I feel like it's worth including all of them. You have Brazil, which, has its large and lush Amazon. You also have Chile with its mountain ranges and beautiful beaches. And let's not forget Argentina with its amazing, just beaches and buildings and just large infrastructure that's just kind of like growing and growing. And also like the old monuments that exist in these areas from the past. This is a part of the world that I think, would be kind of a hard time for me to pick a single country from. Like, I'd have a hard time picking out one country, between Brazil, Chile, Argentina, Honduras, Uruguay, all these countries are down there. It'd be kind of hard to pick one. So I'm kind of just including them all in a single one right here. You could just, say just South America as a whole. But I think, some of these countries have some, a lot of like cultural differences between them, but they also share a lot of things. So I think like including them together the same way I did with the Nordic countries in Europe should probably work. I think just including them together would be the best way, as they have a lot of different aspects to them that could definitely work in unison better than individually, I feel like. But then again, that's my opinion. I love all these countries, and I think they could definitely end up being great regions for a Pokemon game. So yeah, let me know in the comment section down below what do you think about it, and let's go to the next one. Okay, so coming in number 2 is going to be the UK. Now, the UK was a given to have on this list, as it is a country, or rather a part of the world, that has great significance. The UK has a mixture of a lot of different and unique people. Of course, the UK is just the United Kingdom, but then, of course, you have all the countries that are individually, also there. You've got England as its kind of, own thing. You've got Scotland, Wales, etc. Like, you have a lot of different sort of people living together on a very small part of the world, actually. Like, the UK is pretty small, but it has a huge influence on the world, and that's why I think it's really worth bringing it up here, because the UK probably has the craziest history. Like, they've been through so many different, like, they've colonized like pretty much half the world. They've done so many weird things like through history, and they have such a big history as well. There are so many stories that you can create out of those original stories. Like, there's so many stories you can tell based on those and create for a whole Pokemon region. And also, let's not forget that, you have cities such as London and stuff, and a lot of like old buildings in these areas, and just the UK is just brimming with history. And I feel like they could be really well represented in the Pokemon game. Now, there may not be a lot of weird and new unique animals in the UK to use as references for like brand new, Pokemon. But if you just use the history, like I mentioned with some of the other regions as well, if you can just utilize the history well enough, you can probably create something great out of it. Like, Pokemon have done it in the past, where, they base it on certain places, but they can make a whole region out of like a smaller area and still make it unique. Like, look at Alola. It's based on Hawaii, which doesn't have too many, differentiating like environments, I would say. Like, of course they are different because there's several islands, but like, in simple layman's terms, they're very similar to each other. Like, it's just a pretty simple like region, in my opinion, to create, but they still manage to make a lot of diversity in the actual world. So they can definitely use these countries like the UK, for example, as a basis, and then build upon that, which I think would definitely be awesome. And just utilizing the history that exists there would be great, and then just kind of using parts of the geography and environment and then adding in your own touches. I think it would be awesome. But let's go to the next one, shall we? So coming in at the number 1 spot, and by the way, I should point out, none of this was in any specific order, guys. Like, literally, all these countries were just randomly, put into, like, there was no specific order I put them in. So the number 1 spot is equally as good as the number 10 spot. It really doesn't matter. But on number 1 spot, I have South Africa. Now, South Africa is actually, like, a really cool place, in my opinion. I think it's, like, the perfect place to, just take as, like, we take, like, South Africa alongside Egypt to represent the continent of Africa. And it's a massive, like, you know, it's a massive continent. Africa is huge, and it's got a massive diversity of people and cultures as well as environments. While Egypt is more filled with sand and just like older history in general, but you know, and has just been around for a longer time, South Africa, on the other hand, has an amazing, you know, amount of like environmental differences. You know, you've got beaches and you've got like growing and improving infrastructure. I mean, you know, if you look at current times, it's a little bit iffy, but I think you can still make something out of that, as well as like an environment that is just perfectly fitting for Pokemon. And you know, it's a great mix of a little bit of jungle, a little bit savanna, you know, just a little bit of like everything kind of mixed together. And of course, you know, one of the most important thing is like there's a huge variety of animals there that already have influenced tons of Pokemon that already exist. And I think, you know, if you utilize the other, you know, creatures that live there, other animals that live in, you know, South Africa, you can probably create even more awesome Pokemon based on what exists in this part of the world. I think South Africa would be great for a region. There's a lot of different diversity in the country itself, and I think it'd just be awesome to actually see a region based on a African country alongside Egypt as well. I think it'd be really awesome to see that. So I don't know, guys, let me know in the comments down below what you think about that. But that's going to be the end of this video. Went on for a little bit of time here, I'm sorry about that, but I hope you did enjoy the video though. If you did, of course, then do drop a like down below and show some love, you know, to that subscribe button as well if you aren't subscribed already for more future videos. And thank you so much for watching. I do hope you guys, you know, want to leave your own suggestions in the comments down below. What country would you want to see a whole region based on? Let me know in the comments, guys, and thank you so much for watching. I'll see you all the next time. Have a great day, and bye-bye.